So, greetings, and welcome to Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. Warriors Unleashed. I am Michelle Poitier, one of the co-hosts of Warriors Unleashed. Our previous episodes, if you have not tuned into them and if you not heard them, look on our Warriors Unleashed group page and you can go and catch up. However, I am not going to go into what this week's episode is about. What I am going to do is turn it over to our co-hosts, Miss Gabby Ruiz and Miss EJ Mocion, because for this episode of Warriors Unleashed, they are actually putting me in the hot seat. So I'll let them give you their spiel about what Warriors Unleashed was all about, how it came to be, and then I'm in the hot seat, y'all. I'm kind of scared, but
So before
I run
we
towards fear,
start,
not from.
Don't be scared, Mama. You've been
that's
so transparent over the last, just throughout the Healing Women, Healing Nations. You've been so transparent through Michelle Speaks, and so it will be the same situation now. Welcome everyone to Warriors Unleashed. Hey, Gabby.
Hi, Eve.
How's it going, guys?
It's going great. Let's talk really quickly about that hot seat because I think that's what keeps people from having really strong relationships where they feel like they're evolving is because
Uh-huh.
that fear of being on the hot seat. What is it, Michelle? Because you're like the expert in like these emotions that we feel. Because it does almost feel like reliving trauma, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Why? So why do we feel this way when this is
I'm
like
not going to
among
say
us?
that. I'm not the expert at emotions. I will just say I have life. I have lived experiences. And honestly, anytime we are put, on the spot, of course, there's a little bit of nervousness. Even though you guys know me. You've known me for a while, and I live, a life of transparency and vulnerability. But that's not something that I always lived in, and so
Mm-hmm.
I just think that it's challenging because you're exposing yourself to other people's opinions. You're exposing yourself to, just other people's opinions. I'll just leave that there. But one thing that I've come to learn on this journey is that other people's opinions of me are not my reality, and they don't have to be my reality. So that makes
Agreed.
it a little easier.
I think I agree with you
So
there that I'm totally fine spilling all my guts and sharing all my business. But it's how is it going to be taken by the people I'm spilling my guts about? you know? It's
Yeah,
like, are
their
they going to be
reactions,
mad?
and they
well,
may be, they may be.
yeah.
and what
So
is the intention of you doing it?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Michelle, at what point in your life did you feel like it is time to be transparent for other people?
Well, honestly, in the beginning, I wasn't necessarily being transparent for other people.
Hmm.
Um, I was removing that the skin, the chameleon,
The
you
chameleon.
know,
Hmm.
because I'd gotten to a point in my life where I was tired of changing or adapting to be who I thought others wanted me to be for that particular time and moment and place. And so I got tired because it's exhausting, kind of being a, re- a replica of, a representative of who you were originally created to be.
Okay.
Um, but I think to give people a little bit of a background about more about who I am, um, I'll kind of share with them, from three perspectives, who I am personally, professionally, and spiritually. Um, for those that don't know, because you guys know me. So, personally,
Right.
I'm very loving. I have a very soft heart. I love adventure. I'm very adventurous. Um, I'm very eclectic, or kind of, I
Sure.
dance to the beat of my own drummer, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and at times, that is not received well, or people, but I'm at a point in my life where I really don't care. So personally, I'm loving, I'm kind-hearted, I'm open, and some people may take that, that meekness per se is weakness, but that, would be a grave mistake because like everybody else, I have two sides. There's
Sure.
Michelle, and that's the philanthropic, the philanthropist, the giver, the caring person, the
Yes,
nurturing
the
person.
nurturer. Mm-hmm.
And then there's Mickey, which is everybody.
Ooh.
Everybody has a dark side. I'll just say that I leave everybody.
Well, there has to be a balance, so I understand that. So
Right. So
tell us who you are professionally.
from what people have told me, Mickey is a piece of work. So I'll just leave that right there. But professionally, I am. It's what I do. It's not who I am. So I'm a life recovery
Okay.
coach. I help women redefine their life path after adversity, after trauma, after assault, because that's a part of my history. And now that
Sure.
I've come to a place of healing to the point that I can help others heal, that's what I do. I'm an inspirational speaker because I love to speak life to people. And, I've really embraced the fact that I'm a healer, by word, touch, and presence. And so I've really completely embraced that, whereas before I was kind of running from it. I'm an author, a 4-time author. I was part of a group of authors that we did an anthropology on the voices behind mental illness, the life of a veteran, series 5, because I'm a veteran.
Okay.
I'm retired Navy. I am also a entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. But more importantly, above all that, I'm a voice talent. But more importantly, I'm an advocate, and I advocate for issues that are very near and dear to my heart that I'm passionate about. So I advocate for mental health, for domestic violence, for sexual assault. And honestly, I'm an advocate for the underdog. I'm a voice for the
Absolutely.
voiceless, a defender for the defenseless. That is who I am professionally. That is who I am, in all aspects of me, personally, professionally, and spiritually. Um, and spiritually, I am a woman of God. I'm a woman of faith. And my life's vision is I'm a woman of faith, living life audaciously in spite of seeing the invisible, doing the impossible, and inspiring others to do the same. And that in spite of can be anything, whatever your darkest moment is, that's what that in spite of, and inspiring others to do the same. So that
Those
is
were
me in
some
a
really
nutshell.
powerful words. I love it.
So
Yeah.
let me go back to just the personally part because I felt like there was a lot. I'm curious about the things that you do as a ritual regularly that kind of feed who you are personally. I think that's important. Is basically where you get your energy from at a personal level.
Okay. Well, personally, I love to commune with nature. Like I'm at my
Mm,
greatest when I'm either near an ocean of water or a body of water where I can feel like I'm rejuvenating myself or being
nice.
refreshed, or I'm in somebody's mountain top somewhere climbing and being close to nature and being out in the wilderness. And that's where I reconnect because there's no interruptions, there's no distractions,
Connections. That's right.
there's no phone, there's no distractions, there's no noise. It's just peaceful, it's serene. I may hear some birds chirping, depending on where I'm at. I may
Wow.
hear some animals, but that is how I rejuvenate. And then, my daily rituals. As a woman of faith, I'm in my word. I do my devotions. I read my word. I meditate on that, and I do yoga because it regenerates me physically, but also it nurtures me mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Spiritually. Yeah.
And so, music. I'm a lover of music. I've written some songs, and in the process of getting some of those produced. And so, anything. I'm creative. That is what drives me. That is what
That's what.
rejuvenates me. That is what I become a whole different person. I love to dance. I used to teach dance. Before I had some injuries. But once I'm back to
But you will
100%,
eventually go back. You'll go back to
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
will. So
Definitely.
that is me personally. I'm a creative. I'm creative. I love
So you're super
creativity. I love
artsy.
yes.
And in my circles, we call that being an Aquarius, and everybody be like, "Oh yeah,
Of
originative
course, Gabby.
ideas." Someone
Right.
who loves to keep the peace, but won't keep the peace if there's some important idea that that, she's not going to sacrifice an idea for someone's healing.
Right.
That is too funny.
The absolute intellectual adventure of not just, the environment around you, but also like you were entertained, by different ways of different perspectives, You don't see it as a threat. I'm going to go beat you over the head until you believe in me and my Bible. Like, you really entertain everybody's way of making sense of things,
Absolutely.
So,
go ahead, honey. I'm sorry.
I heard someone say Anna. Okay. So I think it's interesting that is kind of your link to me. And E and I knew each other before, I got to meet you. So I know that that's something that always keeps us like so attached on the regular, is just sharing of ideas and reflecting. And, I said this, and then afterwards I thought, what was I doing? And so I am like really excited then that, we also have foods, I should say, that we also have this relationship with our mothers that we also found in common as we were kind of going through these, last few months and trying to make sense of our lives, since that's usually what we do around the holidays,
Yes.
And so there were a lot that we had in common with our mothers. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity to just kind of, what were the things that you still celebrate about your mom, and the things that you felt in the way that she carried herself and who she was professionally, personally, spiritually, that you benefited from.
So how did my mom positively impact me? Basically, my mom is a very strong woman. She is a very outspoken woman. She is a very, her character, her morals are impeccable, unmovable, and she does not deviate from them for anyone, not for mother, not for father, not for husband, not for children, not for anything. And so I think I drew from that as far as her, like she's very loyal, and I'm very loyal, almost sometimes to my own detriment. And I've seen that case for her as well. So I'm very like, I'm a woman of action. Like, I want to get stuff done. It has to get done. If it's started, it has to be completed.
Right.
And I can be very driven and focused in that, to the point that I kind of forget about those that are near and dear to me. And so I don't know that I necessarily took that from her, but yeah, my mom is very, she's a go-getter. She's a lover of people. She's soft-hearted, but at times she can have a tough exterior. And I think to a certain extent I have that as well. You guys can speak to that more than I can. I don't know.
Right.
But
Right.
Also, in essence, it's kind of like, you get a Mickey, and she probably has a nickname for her alternate
e-girl. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
right.
So how has the relationship with your mother impacted you in the community?
In the community, I think it's part of the reason why I have such a heart to serve other people, because I get that from my mom. I love to be in service of people. I love to serve people. But I will say this, in all relationships, but especially the relationships with our mom, because that's the most important one. We do what we know. And what I've come to see in my family, the generational things within my family, is that the women in my family have endured a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of assassinations of their character, and because of that, they've developed this wall in this certain way that they do things, in this certain way that there are certain lines that you're just not going to cross, no matter who it is. And so I think I've inherited that from her, but that's a good thing and it's a bad thing, because, well, it can be a bad thing. And I say that because my mom, like, I worship the ground that she walked on for many, many years. Like
Mm.
she was my God before I came to know God for myself. And
Right.
when you put people up on a pedestal like that, you set them up for failure, because I believe that causes you to love them conditionally.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had conditions, and when some of the things that she did in raising me didn't match up to those conditions, it skewed the way that I viewed her or looked at her, as a mom.
Do you
Um,
think that that was something that you kind of imposed on her, or do you think she was trying to set herself up to be this woman of strength, who could, had tough, thick skin or whatever, that made her, I guess, like for me, and I guess maybe I should tell you how I run my parenting and see, kind of have you compare it to how
Okay.
you perceived the parenting was for you. Because I knew I was imperfect, and I knew that I had a bad temper, and I knew I was
Mm-hmm.
impatient, I would
Mm-hmm.
always say that to my kids, or whenever they would do something, and like typically a parent would have to be like, okay, well, this is usually where I got to ground you now. And like I would say, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here, but I know that I can't let you get away with that. Or, I would be completely open about my weaknesses as a human. And whenever I yelled at him a little too hard, I would come back and just be like, look, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't like that about myself. Do you think that she did that for you in certain respects, or do you think that she robbed you of that, or you kind of didn't want to see her humanness?
I will say this, I can't speak for her. I can only speak from what my perception was growing up of what I
Mm-hmm.
saw and what I see now that I've
Mm-hmm.
grown older and gained some life experiences and um, see things from a different perspective now. So I think from my perspective, she created that exterior based on things that happened to her growing up, and so
Mm-hmm.
she had to be tough, and she had to be the go-getter, and she had to be the one to make things happen, because if she didn't, who
Mm-hmm.
else was? And
Mm.
she wanted, I believe it was her heart to instill that same strength in me, um, but it didn't come off quite right at times. And for a long time, I was disappointed by, the way that our relationship took a turn because of some because life happens.
Mm-hmm.
And but what I've come to realize is that it took that turn because, my slogan, if you hide it, you can't heal it. I have that slogan for a reason, because keeping secrets within the family damages
Mm.
generations of generations within the family growing up. And so,
Right.
there were things in me that she saw, and she just couldn't understand, like, why are you doing this? Why are you reacting that way? Why are you weren't raised like that? Why are you doing this? Not knowing that I was doing that out of the hurt that I felt because of the things that were done to me when she was all off in the military trying to make a better life for us. And she left me in the care of her mother, where some things happened. I was
Mm.
sexually violated by male family members, and this continued, and it continued, and I internalized that. And we can only internalize and suppress things so much before we begin to act out. And so my acting out was what she saw was the result of my acting out without knowing the reason why I was acting out. And
Did
I
she,
couldn't explain that even at the time.
right. So
And so there was nothing that had you, there was no moment where you thought, I need to address this while you were still living under her roof.
or did she ever ask you, like really ask you, what, Michelle, this is not the Michelle that I know. What's going on? Did she ever take the time to do that or no?
I I don't recall her asking that, but that's not to say that she didn't. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because with anybody that's encountered any kind of trauma, we suppress things. There's
Mm-hmm.
certain things that we block because we're not able to handle it. I believe it comes back to the forefront when we're ready to address and deal with that.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what your question was, Gabby. Can you? Ask it again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in.
Well, there's usually this point where you feel like you have to say something. And, me working with children, they don't know that they're supposed to be confronting something, or bringing something up to their parents, which is why, in the schools, we have to tell kids, this is, where you can be touched. This is where no one has a right to touch you. And if it happens, you have to tell somebody, like, did you get that kind of background to know, like, I need to talk to somebody about this because they told me in school, or
Well, it happened at such a young age. I was 6 the first time that I remember it happening, and my mom was away, so I was living with my grandmother, and between my grandmother and my aunt, and my aunt's husband was one of the ones that originally began, started violating me, and so I was young, and I believed what he said. He said, if you say anything, they're not going to believe you, and if you say anything, I'm going to hurt them. And so, I internalized that. And so it never became an option for me or a thought that, hey, I need to tell somebody. And, because when I did, and I did actually believe, I tried to tell my grandmother, but it was a long time before I gathered up the nerve to tell her. And my mom wasn't
how old
there
are
at the
you?
time. Maybe a year later, so maybe 7.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
when I
What?
did tell her,
Uh-huh.
my grandmother said, and my grandmother said this based on her upbringing, and she said to me, well, why did you wait so long before you told me, and then she said, well, you waited so long because you probably enjoyed it. And so that kind of just shut me down, and I don't fault
Of
my grandmother
course.
for that because she came from a different era, where that
Yes,
was
she did.
commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Well, probably you're not supposed to like it, and so if it does happen, it means you do.
right. And
Right.
so, that was the reality then. And so, so that was what I had internalized. So I didn't feel that I could share it with her.
Do you
So
think that this is something? I'm sorry,
go
E.
ahead, honey. Go ahead. Go
Let me just
ahead.
ask this one, and then I'll let you have it.
Go ahead. Go
Um,
ahead.
I think that this is really interesting that there is this protection of the violator, and I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure out why it is. Is this for financial, economic reasons? Because if you go and address it, something that happens to your child, then you now lose your security. Or is it just, maybe do you think that this is kind of a repeat of their own unresolved story that they didn't want to face?
I believe it's partially, a repeat of their own stories, but also because this is the thing, and for as far back as I can remember in my family, and I'm sure other families too, but they just don't talk about it. What
Mm-hmm.
the mindset, the mantra is, what goes on in this house stays in this house. That's
Mm.
why I'm so adamant about,
Mm.
exposing things. If you hide it, you
Yep.
can't heal it. Because
Yeah.
there's generations of brokenness within families, especially among women, because we take on so much and we've been
Yeah.
subjected to so much, and we take that into our relationships with other women, even, you know our daughters and our
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
mothers,
Mm-hmm.
take that into those
Mm-hmm.
relationships. And so, um some things we just take in and we just hold in, and however it manifests, however it comes out, if it comes out as us being harsh or brass in the way that we raise our daughters, if it comes out in
Right.
us being not trusting other women, or having to be seen, and being so competitive and jealous and envious
Yeah.
of other women that are
Mm.
doing things because of that insecurity that was placed in us at a young age by something that was done to us that we had no control over. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're going to control everything that we
Everything.
can within our sphere, within our world. And
Mm-hmm.
so, without telling my mom's story, I came to know when I started speaking on a national platform, speaking out about things like this, that she had experienced similar things in her upbringing and in the military as well, as did I. And so that's why I'm so adamant about breaking the silence. Like, silent no more is my hashtag, because generations of women carry all these
Mm-hmm.
hurts and these pains and these traumas, and it affects how we show up in the community, how we show up with other
It
women,
does.
you know, um, It affects so many aspects of our lives. And women, you know, we are the focal points for our children. We instill in them their morals, their values, their everything. And if we have dysfunction in us that's unaddressed, then that's what we're pouring into the next generation. And I have made it my life's mission to stop that, among the women in my family, and then among the women that God has called me to. But I can't do
that
that.
answers the question that E just asked about how that shows up in your community. Then is it now you are like a defender for others who didn't have that, like just like you. And it almost does seem like we've had conversations about this before in our relationships. There's almost like we come into contact with almost these little groups of people. You have women who are drawn by your strength, because I think that by you being willing to be open and to be accountable and keep people accountable, there's something about your light that is attractive to people. And some are drawn to it for the wrong reasons, and others are drawn to it as a sense of sisterhood, And there are others that are drawn to it but are not ready for that level of vulnerability to be able to stand next to you and feel confident about it, And so I found that, like, the ones now, after having met you, Michelle, it's like now I see like where almost that ferocity comes from, because it's not just a specific person that you're talking about. It's all of your past. It's all of these experiences that you pull together with that, And so people think that, you call it passion or whatever, but there's so much behind that. And I think that sometimes maybe we can come off as being aggressive or whatever, but I think if people understood the reason
or
why.
Or a bitch. Let's
bitch
be
is
real.
probably the one that's said most often.
Us, like, you're a bitch.
Well,
okay?
In my younger years, I have been called that, and honestly, I will admit to it that I was mean as hell. I was horrible. I mean, but it was. I know it now, but it was hurt. It was hurt that I couldn't express any other way. And if I even sensed or smelled or thought that you were trying to come at me, then I'm gonna, I'm coming out for the kill. I'm not coming out to play.
So you're going straight to warrior mode.
Yes.
Agreed.
But now I'm warring a different way. I'm on the Lord's side now. I'm a warrior for the Lord.
Thanks to all the women.
Not saying that I'm
arrived, they're grateful you found the light.
She's fighting for the other side now.
Not saying that I'm arrived, because there's still some things that he is working out within me daily.
That's okay.
But and I had a talk with I was talking with my therapist the other day, and yes, I do have a therapist. You can love God, and you can do whatever your life's mission is, and still, need to be accountable, especially if you've had years of compounded trauma that you're working through. But in talking to my therapist the other day, she said something to me, because my relationships have been impacted, my interpersonal relationships. And she was like, Michelle, you just have to stop being so nice. You're too nice sometimes. And I'm like, I didn't know how to receive that or how to take that.
Sure.
Because I knew how vicious I was in my younger years, and how, I was numb. I had no feelings. I had no emotions. I didn't care. I was I would just say evil. And so because I didn't want to go back to that, I went to the other extreme. Almost to the point of letting people walk all over me. But it's kind of coming to balance now, because this is the thing that I prayed and asked God to do for me. I said, God, I want to forgive people beyond the wrongdoings that they've done to me. I don't want to just forgive them, but I want to be able to love them beyond those wrongdoings. I want to be able to love them unconditionally. I don't want it to be a superficial, conditional love. I just want to be able to love them. And that's what he's doing, because that's what he's doing. And so
let me
that's beautiful.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think there's like a little delayed in the talking
thing.
But
it is.
So here's one interesting thing that I have come across, because I had that same experience where, I was tremendous and then I felt guilty about it. And so that I completely turn in the other direction of being a complete pushover, getting walked over, being taken advantage of. And that, that's what I had found in my 14 years of marriage. I went from one extreme to the absolute other. And I had found during that time, that afterwards, is when I was practicing yoga. And one of the big tenets of one of their energy centers that are around the hips is this whole idea of you being open, but not,
Right.
And so that's the first time that I ever learned anything about having boundaries. And you get non-negotiables, is that, and I'm still reconstructing my non-negotiables are. And one of the things, and I've told this I was actually talking to my son about this the other day, where I said there's two things. One is respect, and the other one is appreciation. Those are my non-negotiables, and I told him that's it. And I can't even remember what we were arguing about, but I think he tried to mouth off to me, and this was like our second disagreement ever. And I said, these are my two non-negotiables. Boom, boom. I wondered if you're there, and have you identified what those non-negotiables are for you now? Because, I would love my son unconditionally.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean he's going to be living with me forever, So I'm going to love and support him.
And it doesn't mean you have to accept anything, just anything from him either.
Right. Well, I will say this. Have I identified what my non-negotiables are? Yes, I have. What have I identified? Have I established healthy boundaries? Yes, I have. But it's taken me almost, I'm 49. So it's taken me almost to this point to establish that and then to sustain that. And so even with my relationship with my daughter, she can come and talk to me about anything, and she does. However, it's how you talk to me about it.
The tone.
Yeah, you can talk to me about anything.
And that's been a big theme with all of us, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, be open, be honest, tell me the truth about me, but you better watch out how you say it.
Yeah, that tone's got to be right.
Even with my mother, even now, I love my mother, I respect my mother, but there are certain things that I'm not going to talk to my mother about, that I wouldn't feel comfortable going to her, talking to her about. And that may just be me.
Right.
Because I'm still working through some things, from years that were spoken to me, because, it's more difficult to heal from words that were spoken into you, because it gets into your psyche, than it is to heal from a physical wound or a physical altercation, and so I'm still healing in certain areas from those words. But do I love my mother? I love her unconditionally. Will I protect her? Yes. Will I go to bat for her? Yes. But I've established some healthy boundaries, because this is a thing. There's 3 types of relationships in our lives. There's relationships that we choose, and that's our spouses, our friends, our social circles, our church, things like that. There's relationships that we encounter, that's people that we encounter in our everyday life as we go about life, in the restaurant, in the grocery store, things like that. But then there's relationships that we inherit. And the relationships we inherit, we have no choice. We have no choice. We can't select. We can't choose our parents. We can't choose our siblings. So the relationships that we inherit, the only thing that we can do is to establish and sustain those healthy boundaries. But we first have to realize that we have boundaries that we can establish, that we can set. And growing up, because I grew up with my grandmother for the first 7 years while my mom was away in the military making a greater life for us. You had no boundaries because you were a child, and children were to be heard and seen. So that was, changing that mindset.
Was it different for your mom?
I'm not gonna lie, I was afraid of my mom.
Is it because she was
might
like
as well
so
been your
aggressive?
grandmother then.
Huh?
So she might as well have been your grandmother, in the sense that you just knew not to. Kids just don't say stuff, no matter how old you are.
Yeah, you were just supposed to be seen and not heard. Is that what you said, Michelle?
Right. And she wasn't of that, to that degree that you were to be seen and not heard. But there were certain things I'm like, I'll tell you a story. My daughter, when she was 12, she got into some trouble. I had talked to her. She was going out with her friends, and that's where that mother's intuition comes in. You just have a
Mm-hmm.
feeling. There's a knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So when she went out, I said, Lex, don't get in any trouble. And she was like, okay, mom. And so, about an hour after she was gone, I started feeling something. I was like, something is off. Like, what?
Wait a
And
minute. Did we just hear this story?
and I get this phone call, and she was, had gotten caught shoplifting, her and some friends, like $200
What
worth of
the
stuff.
hell?
And I
Doesn't it sound
said,
familiar?
right. So I was like, and when I got down there, the people were like, your daughter did not want us to call you. She was like, just take me to jail. Just take me to jail. Don't. And then she called me. And when she called me, she's like, Mom, I got in trouble. I'm such and such and such. I was livid. But I say that, but I still, I was there for her. But I say that to say that was the kind of fear that I had from my mom. So I wasn't, but to the point that I wasn't going to get in trouble. So I wasn't even going to do anything that was going to cause me to have to, to stand before her.
Right.
And so it was just a different time, growing up then. But I was fearful of my mom. I
So
loved her, but
what's your relationship like with your mother now?
my relationship now with my mom is maybe a couple of years ago, because she didn't find out the things that happened to me until I was like 34. That's when I
Oh,
told her.
wow.
And I'm 49 now. And so before that, we like butted heads. Like we had some differences of opinion. I mean, there were some things that happened, um, that I was just like, there was a period of time I didn't speak to her honestly for almost 10 years after I got married,
Okay.
because things had gotten so bad between us. And so when ask me the question again, I lost my train of thought.
No,
Oh,
just
no problem, Mama. I was asking, what's your relationship like with your mother now? Because I know you spoke on earlier about how your mother, of course, is the first teacher. And to
Yeah,
you, she was God. You had her on this high pedestal, and when it came to certain decision making, um, you kind of felt you were scared, and you felt like, okay, this is not you're up here, so why are you handling things like you some lowly ass peasant, basically?
right.
so that
And
conversation 10 years ago then was the big moment where you had a different perspective on your mom.
Right. There were still some things, we still butted heads on some things,
sure.
and I'll say my relationship with her now is she is really getting to learn to know who I am as a woman, because that was the thing a couple of years ago. She apologized to me, and then I understood to the degree of the guilt that she felt for the things that happened, because she
Hmm.
didn't know, and I guess it gave her a greater understanding of why I was the way I was and why I did certain things the way that I did because of what I experienced. And so she carried around that guilt for a long time after I told her. And so our relationship now is like she's getting to know who I am as a woman. I'm beginning to embrace her as a woman, knowing, some of her experiences growing up. And
Hmm.
but it took a long time to get there, because honestly, maybe about 2012, 2013, we had a
Hmm.
really big falling out. And so we didn't speak again for a couple of years, because there were some things that had transpired with my daughter. And I raised my daughter to be very independent. And, grandparents, they dote on the grandkids and stuff like that. Um, but I felt that they were trying to re-raise her. And I'm like, I don't need you to re-raise her. I just need you to love her. And so something, happened, and I went to pick up my daughter one time because she asked me to drop her off over there. And when I went to pick her up, and my dad had never spoken to me. He's not my real dad, but he was the only father figure that I knew.
Hmm.
So he spoke to me in a way, he said, um, you know, you need to be there for your daughter more, da 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 da. You're about to
Mhm.
go climb a mountain, because that was when I was getting ready to go on this expedition
Oh,
where I climbed
wow.
and
Wow.
in Peru. And he says, you're about to go to bum blankety blank Egypt, and you need to be taking care of your daughter. And you know, your parenting skills are piss poor, and you're a poor excuse for a parent. And I just, first of all, I saw red, but there was still that inkling in me that I will respect my parents, you know, because the word says, you know, respect your mother and father that your life may be long on the earth. But I saw red, like that was the first time, like if my daughter wasn't there,
Mhm.
um, it probably would have been a whole different outcome. Like I wanted to jump across that counter and just, you know, because one, he was the only father figure that I knew, and for him to say that. But the thing that cut me the most was my mom was standing there. And I understand, you know,
Mm.
when you're married, you gotta, you know, you gotta be that, you gotta support, you know, your
Undivided
spouse.
front. Hmm.
Right. But
Mhm.
when she nodded her head in acknowledgement, like she agreed with what he said, devastated me.
Yeah.
Devastated me. So I
So
was
so
like,
it so it broke you in a way.
yeah, yeah. And I was already in a broken state at that time, because that's when I was really battling with
Hmm.
PTSD, not
Mhm.
realizing it, you know, and I was homeless at that time. So I was trying to get
Mhm.
back on my feet, and they didn't know that because I didn't even tell them.
Right.
No,
And
that's not
Right.
so,
something I'd want them to know.
right.
Mm-mm.
And so, because I felt like a failure, you know, and I didn't want to have something else that, you know,
Mhm.
for them to talk about. And so, you know, that I failed in. And so, but that was my mindset, not necessarily that that's what they were going to think, but that was just how I felt. And so, we went for another 3 or 4 years without communicating. Like I would send them, you know, emails on Mother's Day, Father's Day, but there was no communication. And I told them, I said, you know, um, I have to separate myself from you for my own emotional, mental well-being, because I was on the edge because of the PTSD and other stuff. And but I internalized that like I was a bad parent, like, you know.
Mhm.
But then I thought about it. I'm like, and then my mom, you shook your head in agreement, like, you're my mom. Like, I am who I am because of you. So that was my mindset. And
You're definitely a better woman than I am, because those are some harsh words. I don't care. Like for me, yeah, definitely a certain level, but I'm like, at some point, parents have got to understand that they got to be respectful too. And I know for as being a parent myself, sometimes we think that we're right all the time. We just have something in us, oh, because we've lived longer. I've experienced more, I know more, and you should be doing things this way. And those are some really harsh words. And I'm gonna be honest, I may have jumped over the table on his ass. Okay, let me be honest. Yes.
Well, I'll
Y-
tell you, at
I
least
didn't,
I know I would never have ever sent another email, Happy Father's Day, ever again.
I wouldn't either,
Ever.
not me.
but
I know
but
me.
you know,
How do
but
you
you
do
know,
that, Michelle? I don't think even Jesus would agree with that.
She said,
He would
Jesus.
have said,
but this is
when?
the thing. This
Now
is
is
the
the time to leave.
thing.
You stupid, Gabby.
This is the thing, and that's when it helped me to realize the core of who I really am, and
Mhm.
how I'm a peacemaker, and I
Mhm.
want to love others beyond their stuff. And some, you know, there's three types of people. There's quitters, there's campers, and there's climbers. The quitters are going to stop when it gets too tough or gets too painful, and they don't want to address it. The climbers, they're going to address it. They're going to get to a place where they're comfortable, and they don't want to go any further. Yeah, the campers are there, that they get comfortable and they don't want to move beyond that. The climbers are those that are going to keep climbing no matter how painful it gets, no matter how ugly it gets, no matter what it feels like. That's when I truly understood that I was a climber. You know, there have been periods in my life where I've been a quitter and a camper, and they can be interchangeable. But I am a climber truly, because it took me a year before I started speaking with them, because I had to get centered and I had to get focused and
Mhm.
I had to get settled. You know,
Mhm.
but I realized that he is speaking from his own experience and his pain and his upbringing. But it didn't, and that's where I say, you know, what I said earlier. Other
Mhm.
people's opinions of you are
Mm-hmm.
not your reality. And so that was, I had to really kind of come to grips with that. That's his opinion of me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if my mom agreed to you know, to keep peace in the house or to provide a united front. I don't know. But I
Mm-hmm.
do know that it affected me and it affected our relationship for a while.
Did
I
you
guess
Um,
ever
here,
share that? Did you ever share with them? I mean, are you okay? Are you guys in like a better space now where you're, or have you ever gone back to converse with them about how those words cut you like a knife? Have you ever done
I
that?
I've talked to my mom about it. Let me tell you, it got to the point because my mom and I started talking because I told him, I said, I will
Okay.
never step foot back in your house again, ever.
Right. Right.
And I
Okay.
didn't for about 6 years. I would go, you know, visit my daughter because she was staying in the same state with them at the time. She's back in the same state. And I would go and I would visit my mom because I was still trying to, you know, keep that connection because that was my mother. And I would
Sure.
go pick her up from the house or I would go meet her out, but I wouldn't go in the house. And she
Mm-hmm.
said it bothered him, but I didn't care. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was still working to kind of keep that connection with my mom because that's my mom. And a large part of who I am and my strength is I drew from her. But
Mm-hmm.
also, I know on a greater level, that strength was already instilled in me by the Creator, my Abba Father, you know, that resiliency, that strength. But I'm loyal, and I was
Mm-hmm.
loyal to my mother. I didn't necessarily have to be loyal to him because he wasn't my blood father. He was the only father figure that I knew. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
why it cut me so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because you know he
so
was the only
Michelle,
father.
I'm gonna ask you a tough question, okay?
Mhm.
I'm gonna take my glasses off for this. So, what would you say to a spouse who is being beat down by her husband, and she said, "I can't leave because I'm loyal and I draw my strength from God, and He's doing the best that He can. I'm staying home here where I belong. This is where God wants me to
You
be."
know what? That's a whole different dynamic. I would tell that woman to leave because God doesn't want us to be in a position where we're being physically, you know, abused. I'm not, you know, that's to me that's apples and oranges. So,
So it's
but that's what
obvious
I would
physical abuse
tell.
and emotional abuse going on. It's different. So what you're saying is that,
Mhm.
the whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. So it's different.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that because words, honestly, words cut and
They
hurt
do cut.
deeper than abuse. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying in this aspect, because it was still grounded in me to respect my parents and to honor my parents, even though, you know, it's what they may not have deemed that as them disrespecting me, um, because that was the generation that they grew up in. But my generation, you know, my daughter is going to respect me, but she's going to have a voice and she's going to speak her truth to me. I didn't feel that I could speak my truth. And even now as an adult, yes, I speak my truth, but I'm still respectful with it. There's a way that I approach them. And so, but I had gotten to the point, you know, with my mother, I spoke my truth with her. I said everything that I needed to say, that I wanted to say, that I desired to say. We had that conversation. Um, and then another instance came up, you know, where, you know, my daughter was going through some changes. You know, I had gone to help her and she'd gotten into some trouble. I went to help her because that's my daughter. I'm going to help her. Um, and I got a text, you know, we hadn't even communicated in a while, but I got a text from my dad again, the father figure. And he said, I don't care what you have to do, even if you got to go stand on the street corner, you need to help your daughter. Livid. So my mom called me right after that and I said, do you know what your husband said texted me?
Yes, that's what
Told
I'm talking about.
and I told her and I said, you know what? That's not once, that's twice. I said, I've I've never disrespected him. I said that's twice that he's done. I said that is how he really feels. Point blank period. That is your husband, you gotta live with him, you gotta love him. I have no more dealings because he really showed me what he thinks of me as an adult and as a woman and as a parent. I'm done. And so, you know, my mom kind of felt like she was stuck in the middle. She's like, I love the both of you. Somebody has to be the bigger person. I'm like, well, at this time, that bigger person is not going to be me. But, you know, from that time to now, I've just come to accept that there are some things in people that you cannot change and that they are not going to change. And I choose to love them beyond that. But I love them with conditions, with my healthy boundaries. Um, and so I will say that I still love him. I have a love for him because of the way that he loves my mom and the way that he takes care of her. But there are certain things that he can't talk to me about, like how I raise my daughter or how I raise my child. And there are certain things that even though I love him, the dynamics of our relationship have changed forever, like forever changed. And so,
If he can talk to you that way, do you suspect that he might speak to your mother that way behind closed doors, or maybe
He's
something
pretty
you haven't
comfortable
seen?
with that.
I don't foresee. I can't say, you can't say what goes on behind closed doors between, between a husband and a wife. So I can't say what their communication is like. But knowing my mom the way that I do, I know that that's something that she wouldn't tolerate. Now, maybe they've had instances 1 or 2 times where she may have had to put him in his place. But I don't think that's something that she would tolerate on a regular basis.
So have you
Like,
witnessed when she has basically voiced disagreement with him?
oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's such a different perspective than I have. And I think that the only way that I would accept still having this exchange, happy Mother's Day, happy Father, those kinds of relationships, the condition would have to be truth. Like, and if you say something to me, I'm going to give it back to you, because I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to let you put that on me, make it my responsibility when it's obvious that person's problem,
And it is not my responsibility, which is why I go back to that other people's opinions are not my reality. That may be how you see me, but that is not who I am or how I am. And so most definitely I'm going to voice what I want to voice, but I'm not going to let you take me to the point that I am not in control of my emotions and I'm going to say something to cut you that, that I know is going to cut you. I'm not going to do that. Whereas before I was that person. I definitely was that person. I would cut you up with my words in a minute. But now I'm ever so mindful about how I communicate with people. And, as I still said, I'm a work in progress because there are still instances where I will say things to cut you if you hit a spot in me, maybe that's triggered something from before. But overall, I will do my best to not to do that. But I'm going to express to you what your words or your actions, how they affected me and what we can do to kind of work around that. And if there is no workaround, okay, I love you. But, this is how I base the relationships in my life with women, men, anybody. Because I'm a woman of faith. It's the outer court, the inner court, and the holiest of holies. So it takes a lot from you to get to the outer court of my life to the holiest of holies, where I entrust you with everything, every part of me, my most sacred thoughts and secrets and feelings and emotions.
I guess the thing is that you know that you're a strong person and you're choosing to find ways to take these things that leave a mark and chop them up in pieces and let it disseminate, And I think you are right. There are people who are the climbers. Maybe I'm the lazy one because I just decide that's not worth me trying to, that's not worth trying me to make a shredded beef taco out of. I just don't need to shred it at all. I might have chicken,
Okay.
Right.
And so, but, I think that this is where like my area professionally really comes in, and that I think to myself, my body is my God. And if my body is telling me that there is something wrong, then I take that as a message from God, So that's why I pay attention to how sick I get. That's why I pay attention to my blood work. I get regular physicals, because that's how God speaks to me, is through my body. And if I can keep my equilibrium to where everything is within those normal ranges, then I say, okay, the choices that I've made in my life are serving me well,
But that's the external. The internal is, the external Some things that happen to us physically are a sign that something internally is off. And because I'll speak for myself, because of all of the abuse that I encountered, because of all the things that I encountered, I learned to distrust my own intuition, my own instinct, the Holy Spirit that resides in me. I learned to distrust that. And so I have relearned to trust that. Normally, the first thing we feel, the first instinct we feel about a person is the correct one. But if your life has been marred by trauma or anything else, you learn to distrust that. And that led over into my relationships with other women. Not just period, but other women. Like, you know, if a woman came to me and tried to befriend me and it mimicked anything that I experienced before, that red flag went up, then I would be like, I'd give them the benefit of the doubt. Well, no, that's not how that really is, even if it was, because I started to distrust my own instinct, which is, I call it the Holy Spirit, that gives you that check in your spirit. But I had to learn to re-trust myself and my instincts. Now, I embrace women. I embrace, when I say women, I mean friendships, but with greater wisdom and greater discernment now because of my experiences, honestly, because of my relationship with my Abba Father, because I'm attuned to him again. So that is my barometer by which I gauge relationships and people trying to come into my life now. You're going to start at the outer court. You're not just going to come in and instantly, hey, you're in my inner circle. You're in the holiest of holies. You're going to start at the outer court. But just like with any relationship, it takes time and experiences and, to gain that trust. And then as you gain that trust, you'll become into the inner court, and then you'll become into the holiest of holies. But if you do something that I feel is a threat to that inner core, then you're going back to the outer court, and you may not ever regain, getting to the holiest of holies again.
So,
but it doesn't mean that I do, and it doesn't mean
So it
that I don't
sounds like to me that you've learned now, I'm already taking this load in my life history. I'm not about to let you in because it's like I got no room for you. There's no room in the inn is what it sounds like to me. And that's how you do life. Like that's how you embrace it all. It sounds like to me, So
Because
that means
honestly,
you're probably going to be a little more picky.
yeah, I'm sure.
I'm very selective about those that I allow in the holiest of holies, who I entrust my heart with, my time with, because again, there's three types of relationships: those we choose, those we encounter, and those we inherit. Just because you're my sibling or my cousin or my parent or my whatever does not mean that you're going to be in my holiest of holies. You have to earn that. Just because, for the relationships that I choose, friends and social circles and church and, partners or whatever, and when I get married again, that you're going to have to work. That's something that I chose based on the relationship that we grew. And that takes time. And so I'm not so quick. So I can love you and I can do for you, but you're not gonna just instantly be, in my holiest of holies. But I used to be that way. Like I used to be that, I'm not gonna say gullible, but that open. Like I took you at face value. I didn't know, I didn't think that there were any ulterior motives. But time and experience has taught me that I can't always be that way. That I have to trust that instinct. I have to trust that inner man. I have to trust if something feels right, it's not right. Because I'm at a place and space in my life right now that I don't want to entertain superficial conversations. I will not entertain superficial relationships. I will not entertain anything where I have to show you my representative and not who I truly am. And I'll know it. And I trust it now. Like if I feel like something's off, I don't try to blow it off anymore. I'm like, Lord, just reveal this person to me. I don't want to know them by their flesh. I want to know them by their spirit. So reveal them to me. Why are they coming into my life? Why am I connecting to them? Why are they connected to me? And that's
I was
how
going to
you.
ask.
So that's your secret then, really, is that you have to stay connected to God daily, multiple
Yes.
times daily,
I agree with
because
that.
if you lose that, then it's like the protections aren't there for you to so easily, be able to have that connection to intuition.
Right. Now, and not only that, but you have to do the hard work. Hear me when I say this for anybody listening in. You have to do the hard work of addressing and healing from the traumas and the hurts and the pains of the past. Otherwise, you're going to be skewed in how you see people that have come into your life to be a blessing, but you view them as the enemy. And you can't do that unless you are in relationship with our creator. I don't care what anybody says, and whoever you deem the creator to me. For me, my creator is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Whoever you have to be tapped in.
And speaking of that, because I'm watching the time, but I knew we were going to go over time with you, and I just kind of accepted it. But speaking of that, I know without a doubt that one of your most defining moments was that moment where I always picture you having that face-to-face with God on top of your mountain that you would have never expected yourself to ever be at. Can you just tell us about that? Because I know it's one of your top moments of life.
That is one of the most defining moments in my life, was when I climbed the Andes Mountain in Peru at 17,000+ feet. The air was very thin. I was roped into other people. And I had to face two fears at that point. I had to face my fear of the opposite sex, because I was there with 10 other veterans that were men. And I feared that because I was violated sexually in the military, and I was violated multiple times throughout my childhood, by men, sexually violated. So that kind of, I had to face that fear, and then I had to face my fear of heights. Like I'm still afraid of heights, but I will.
Oh wow!
I will confront
I
that
didn't know
fear every
that.
time.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, I'm definitely afraid of heights, but that's where I get, that what I always say, will you allow your fear to paralyze you, or will you use that fear to propel you? Because I had to face that fear. There was no turning back. Where was I going? I had to confront it. And so when I got to the top of that mountain, I was like, God, I faced my fear of being around men, of trusting men, because at one point I fell. So I had to trust one of the men to help me because I fell. And then I had to face my fear of heights, because there was 17,800 feet is a long way to fall.
Yes, it is.
And to trust myself to be roped up with other men, and having to use this crampon, this ice pick to latch onto the mountain if one of us fell through, so all of us wouldn't fall through. That was my paradigm shift, because up to that point I was suicidal. Like, I had attempted to end my life 5 times by that time, at that point. And 5 times God said, not so, because you still have purpose to fulfill. But I didn't want to hear that, honestly. Just being real, I didn't want to hear that. But what I realized at the top of that mountain is that I did not want to die. I just wanted to be alleviated from the excruciating pain that I had carried up to that point in my life. The pain of the physical abuse, and the sexual abuse, and the incest, and the loss of a marriage, and the infidelity, and the betrayal of friends, and the loss of a job and a car and a relationship after I got divorced, all within a certain time frame. And then who wouldn't have some mental health challenges at that point?
Right.
But then being labeled as that, I was like, I am more than just this. And so I was at the end of my rope. And so when God met me on the side of that mountain, and he alleviated some of that pain, and that's kind of what pushed me. That was what pushed me into purpose. That pain pushed me into my passion, which helped me to fulfill my purpose, which is healing women, healing nations, my nonprofit, and Michelle Speaks. If you hide, you can't heal it.
If you hide it,
Because
you can't
until
heal
we
it.
as a society and we as individuals make up the society, until we are able to face our greatest pains and our greatest traumas and begin to heal so that we can help others heal, we are not going to move forward because we are hardwired for connection. We cannot isolate ourselves. We cannot cut ourselves off from one another because we need one another. But we have to be able to work through the pain so that the lens through which we see others is no longer skewed.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to address those things. And so I had to love my mom beyond her faults because
Mm-hmm.
those faults were ingrained in her from generations before her, generations of
Mm-hmm.
women before her, because of what happened to them and how, because we as women, we are nurturers. We take care of everybody, so we don't take care of ourselves. But we have to take care of ourselves to be able to nurture the relationships around us and to be able to show up transparently, authentically, and be vulnerable. And so, I love my mom. I've forgiven, my ex-husband for all the things that he's done. I no longer fear, what could happen or what may happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love those that have done things against me. And that's hard for me to do because, um, that was hard for me to do, to
Sure.
be able to love people beyond the wrongdoings. But then I had to remember the grace that God gave me in spite of all my wrongdoings and all the things that I've done to hurt people out of my own hurt. And so that
Mm-hmm.
is the thing that drives me. Without him, I am nothing. Without my connection with him, I am nothing. So when people are drawn to me, I know it's not me that they're drawn to. They're drawn to the light of God that shines within me, that dwells within me. And he
Beautiful.
wants to use that. He wants to use that to draw people unto him and to draw us back together. And so for all the women that have done things against me, women that befriended me to get close to my husband, I carried
Mm-hmm.
around a hatred and a mistrust of women because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I no longer have that. If they do something to me, okay, I look beneath the surface. God, well, what is it? Why are they hurting? And if he chooses to reveal that to me, okay. But if not, then okay. But I'm not going to respond or react to your response to me because of the hurt that you are carrying on the inside of you, because I'm learning not to project my hurt and my pain onto others, but to be a reservoir of healing so that we can be completely unleashed. That's why, my hashtag is healing unleashed, silent no more, because silence breeds sickness. And I no longer want to be sick because I held things in for so long that my that it manifested as physical sicknesses. I had a
Mm-hmm.
heart condition. I had a plethora of other
Mm-hmm.
physical ailments. But as I continue to address my inner stuff, my physical ailments are being healed as well. Because I don't want to just be healed. I want to be whole. And I want to help other women and other people be whole, not just healed. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about there were 10 people that wanted to be healed and they did get their healing, but only one of them came back to thank the person that healed them. And I'm paraphrasing. And that person
Mhm.
was made whole. So I don't want to just be healed. I want to be whole. So that is my life's mission, and that's my life's mantra. Are there still going to be people and women I don't like? Of course, but I'm not going to be nasty to them. But you're going to be outer court.
So it
Wonderful.
sounds like your life and the way you've run it, it ain't for any ordinary person. It is a warrior
Yeah.
preparation, maintenance, and almost like future promise to yourself. And so
Yeah.
I guess if you don't mind me going to that last question, is your takeaway to someone else different than what it is for you as a consequence of that? And what is your call to action, as you're trying to get up to that level, of understanding of others?
Well, I would say the takeaway is this. In order for you to be able to heal from the traumas and wounds of your past. You have to address and face the root of those traumas from your past. And the more you learn yourself and become aware of who you are, the more you'll be able to embrace that. And the more you'll be able to forgive others for the things that they've done to you based on their own experiences that they may or may not have addressed. And so that is the takeaway. The more aware you are of who you are and what you will allow and what you will stand for, what your non-negotiables are, the more you'll be able to embrace and accept and forgive the wrongdoings that were done to you. That is the takeaway. The call to action is this: you cannot do it alone. So the call to action is, if you are hurting, first and foremost, find somebody that you can be accountable to, that you trust. And it can't be somebody that's going to say everything you do is great and everything you do is wonderful, because that's not a friend. Find somebody that is going to hold you accountable, even at times when you don't want to hold yourself accountable, so that you can embrace and be who you were originally created to be. Like, I was created to be a healer through words, touch, and action. I embrace that. I was created to be, and I am, powerful beyond measure. I am fearfully and wonderfully made, as my father told me. I no longer believe the lies that were told to me, but I wouldn't have come to that had I not been able to face the darkest, most painful experiences of my life through the Word of God. And I'm still a work in progress, but that is the call to action. Find someone that you can be accountable to. And I don't care how much you don't like it. I don't care how much they ruffle your feathers. Find someone that you can be accountable to, because we cannot do it alone, because we are not islands unto ourselves.
Beautiful.
So taking us there, then, how do we get to you so that you can help us climb?
Oh gosh.
How do we get to you so we can climb? You have an amazing, array of projects that you're working on. Almost like, I gotta get this all done, Jesus, because I don't know what tomorrow may bring. You're like Deepak Chopra, like publishing 20
I love Deepak Chopra.
in 1 year.
Right?
I better do this now while I can.
Oh yeah.
So can you go through a real quick list of things that you're working on right now?
Oh yeah.
So what I'm working on right now. So of course, this project, Michelle Speaks Warriors Unleashed, and this is a platform where we just help we help people to address and embrace their truth, and address and embrace their pain. And I want to put this plug in here. This is not just for women only. So if there is a man that wants to come on and talk about their relationship with their father and how it has impacted how they show up, please reach out to us. If there's anybody else that wants to share their story and about how they turn their tragedies into a triumph, please reach out to us. So the other projects are Empowered to Thrive. That is an all woman group where we help women to do the three things that I believe we all want. We want to be loved, we want to be seen, and we want to be heard. And to be able to do that, you have to have a safe, sacred environment where you can process or navigate the pains and the traumas that you've experienced. So Empowered to Thrive, that's a closed virtual Facebook support group that I have under Michelle Speaks that we do. And then what are my other projects? I've got so many, it's hard. I mean, if you guys want to know more about what I'm doing, you can see my website at the bottom of the page is michellespeakz.com. Michelle Speaks with a Z.com. And so that has a list of all of my upcoming events and projects and things like that. And so I'm just on a mission to use up every gift that God has given me, because gifts were meant to be given away, not hoarded. They were meant to be given away. And honestly, a friend and mentor of mine gave me a whole different perspective on um, why people are in my life and why certain people are in my life and coming back into my life. And he helped me to understand that they're gifts, they're gifts, and that gift, and it's up to me to understand and figure out why God has given me this gift. And what I've, come to is that they're showing me something in me that I had not realized, or maybe a blind spot that I had. Because some
Mm-hmm.
people that come back into my life, I'm like, why are you back in my life? I don't want you here. What is your motive?
Mm.
Why? But I've learned to view them as gifts, to unpeel or unveil another layer that maybe I've been blinded to, so that I have more tools by which I can continue to navigate this thing called life. And so, some other projects, I'm a life recovery coach, so we have 3 programs: redefining your life path after adversity. That's a one-on-one intensive 6-month program where I coach you and take you through the journey of addressing your adversity so that you can live the life that you really desire to live. And then there's our unmasking the hurt. That's a 3-phase program: unhiding, harnessing, and healing the hurt. And so that's like a group program that you can do from the comfort of your own home. And we go through the 3 phases. Each phase is a month long, where we take you through the process of unhiding the hurt, which means identifying the hurt, and then
Mm-hmm.
harnessing that hurt, meaning harnessing that hurt and taking it into and turning it into something positive, like turning the tragedy into a triumph. And
Mm-hmm.
then unhiding, harnessing, and healing. And when you harness that, that's where the healing comes. And now that you're healed, you can go out and help others heal. Because I truly believe the things that we encounter, they're not for us. They're for us to go out and reach the people that we were called to reach. That at some time, and sometimes the only people, the only time that people are going to see Jesus or our Creator is what they see in us. So there's people that we've been called to. And so in order for us to get to them, we have to go through these things to help them navigate the way, on how they can get to Him, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of
Oh, yeah.
projects. There's a support group, the Healing Women, Healing Nation support group. Um,
Your
I'm
Friday night girl night in.
Girls Night In, and that's different from the support group. The Girls Night In is just women coming together, women of power, women that, and power doesn't necessarily have to be professionally. In your homes, we as women wear so many hats that we just need a time where we can come together and get encouragement from one another and inspire one another and just be real, in an environment that is sacred, that is safe, and that is confidential, and that, yeah, you're
I
not
bet
gonna
there's
get me
not one person who's been to that has not felt like it was therapy.
Right, right.
Just having had dinner with you, I felt like I was supposed to leave a copay. Well, it says biblically, by their fruits ye shall know them. And you are like
Yes.
absolute evidence of that you have taken all of these things. I don't know how I would process them. And you have totally almost made it like a mission that all of these experiences did not come in vain.
Well, you know what? And we have to also remember that she's walking in her own element. I think a big problem with people is that they look at, instead of looking at what their gifts are and honing that, they're looking at somebody else's gift and trying to walk in someone else's element, and that's why it never works. Like that journey never works for them. She's walking in her element on her journey that she's supposed to be on, and that's important to embrace.
I received that, EJ, because let me tell you something. I don't want to walk in anybody else's shoes or anybody else's gifts, because there's some things that people are walking through that I've seen. I don't want to walk through that. So, you have to sit down and, people see the exterior, but they don't see the interior and the things that has cost you, the price that you had to pay, the
Exactly.
sacrifice that you had to make to walk in what you're walking in. So you can try to emulate me or imitate me all day long, but you can never be me. You can never, give out what God has poured into me to pour out. So, I will, like, there's people that I love, that I admire, that I will try to emulate the things that they're doing, but I'm not going to do them it gives me inspiration, but I'm not going to
Sure.
try to imitate what they are doing because I can't do that because I haven't had that experience.
Right.
It never works. I'm telling you from experience. It never works trying to
It just
copy
doesn't work.
somebody
But
else's
you know,
stick.
You know, you guys, we can go on
Michelle.
and on. We're like 20 minutes past.
Oh, okay, guys.
I'm
Well,
all
listen,
right.
we're gonna
Anybody
wrap
else?
things up. We're gonna wrap things up, guys.
We can
Michelle,
continue to
thank
talk on
you
here.
for
We have to
sharing your story. Thank you
thank
for showing us that no matter what we're going through on our journey, that we can evolve. And thank you for being so transparent about who you are, because people need to know. All they see is the external, but they never know the trials, tribulations, your challenges that you've gone through to get where you are. So thank you
Oh,
for
you
sharing
carry
that
it
with us.
so gracefully. You carry it so
Oh,
gracefully.
Hmm.
thank you.
Mm.
Girl, you guys know that I'm a song person. Every time you guys say certain things, keywords, it just kicks songs up. But you know, this song is called "You Don't Know My Story." You don't know my story. You don't know the things that I've been through. I cannot imagine. I don't know the rest of the words, but I just had to say,
She had to get that out, honey. She had to get that out.
I had to
She
get
said, I'm
that
gonna
out.
give you a little something. I'm gonna give you a little something,
Right,
but I'm not gonna give
right,
it all to you.
right. But anyhow, I love you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for taking on the task of putting me in the hot seat. You
And
know,
I'm telling you, I would much rather not next time because you are amazing at this. It
You
felt
are.
like
You
really awkward
are.
for me to do it.
thank you
Me
guys.
too. I'm the introvert.
So if you guys want to follow us, make sure that you send a request to be a part of Warriors Unleashed, the group. You just have to type in Warriors Unleashed in Facebook and submit a request to be a member. If you want to follow me on IG, it's Michelle Speaks with a Z. If you want to follow Gabby, I believe her information is up there on the screen. If you
Yep,
want to follow
Gabby
me,
107.
And mine is I am Essence the number 9 on Instagram.
right. And so I hope that this has encouraged you, that it has inspired you, that it has blessed you. Share it with your friends, you know, within your networks. And make sure when you watch this, because we're going to load it to YouTube, that you hit the subscribe button. We are 30 people away from hitting 100 so that I can personalize the
Yay.
link. So I
Yay.
appreciate your support. But until the next episode, you guys, this is Michelle of Michelle Speaks, Warriors Unleashed, with me and my sister warriors here. And you guys have a wonderful evening. Take care, be well, and God bless.
Thank you,
Ciao.
Michelle.
Thank you so much. Ciao.